morning light spilled through the cafe windows, catching steam from espresso machines and the soft clatter of cups. Jacob Peters stood in line, calm, deliberate, dressed in dark workwear that spoke more of routine than threat. A holstered firearm rested visibly at his side, secured, legal, familiar. He ordered coffee, nodded thanks, checked his watch. Work waited. At a corner table, an elderly white woman stiffened, her eyes fixed on the gun, then on Jacob's face. She whispered to herself, fingers already trembling toward her phone. "There's a man," she murmured into the receiver, voice urgent, fear dressed as certainty. "He's armed. I think something's about to happen." The dispatcher asked questions. The answers were vague. The conclusion was not. Outside, sirens converged fast, multiplying. The cafe's glass rattled as 5 patrol cars screeched into place, followed by a tactical van. Customers froze mid-sip. Chairs scraped. Commands boomed through loudspeakers, sudden and absolute. "Hands where we can see them." Jacob turned slowly, palms open, confusion flashing once before discipline took over. He complied, lowering himself to his knees as instructed. Coffee forgotten, guns leveled from every angle. Officers poured in, voices overlapping, adrenaline louder than reason. No questions came, only orders. Jacob was cuffed hard, pulled to his feet, pushed against the counter. Someone kicked his feet apart. Another rifled through his pockets. The room smelled of fear now, sharp and metallic. "Permit?" Jacob tried to speak. "I'm authorized." The words vanished under shouted commands. Outside, his car was searched. Trunk opened. Cases emerged. Precision gear, training equipment misread instantly as intent. An officer scoffed. "Looks illegal to me." Time stretched. Minutes piled into something heavier. And somewhere behind the noise, a simple ID waited to be checked. The cafe emptied in stages, patrons ushered out with hands raised, eyes wide, phones confiscated or lowered under threat. Jacob remained cuffed near the counter, wrists burning, shoulders tight as officers argued in clipped phrases over his head. "He's got tactical cases." "Run serials." Why is he carrying in public? No one asked him anything that mattered. When he tried again, "I can explain," a palm pressed his shoulder down. "Quiet," someone snapped, as if silence were proof. Outside, the trunk lay open. Foam-lined cases were spread across the pavement like accusations. An officer lifted a piece of equipment, turning it with suspicion. "This isn't civilian," he said. Another nodded, already convinced. Radios crackled with half-formed conclusions. "Possible intent. Investigate further." A supervisor arrived late, eyes skimming the scene without slowing it. Jacob was marched to a cruiser, guided roughly, head ducked too hard. "You're being detained for questioning," he was told. "On what grounds?" he asked evenly. The answer came as a shrug. Inside the car, heat and plastic closed in. He focused on breathing, on not escalating, on the long habit of staying composed when others lost theirs. Back inside, the elderly woman watched from the sidewalk, hands clasped, relief etched on her face. "See?" she whispered to no one. "I knew it." The officers nodded among themselves, the story cementing with each repetition. 20 minutes passed without a single lawful question. Paperwork began prematurely. Someone finally took Jacob's wallet, flipping past cards until a laminated ID slid free. The officer frowned, checked it again, then again. His voice dropped. Sarge?" He held the card like it might bite. The supervisor took it, color draining as recognition landed. The radios went quiet, as if the station itself were holding its breath. The supervisor stared at the ID, then at Jacob, then back at the card as if hoping it would change its mind. "Everyone stand by," he said too quickly. An officer laughed once, nervous, then stopped when no one joined. The radio hissed. "Confirming," the supervisor muttered, already stepping away. A call went out, then another. Names were repeated carefully, each syllable measured now. The temperature in the lot dropped. Jacob sat in the cruiser, cuffed, watching the choreography shift. Voices softened, movements slowed. An officer who'd barked orders minutes earlier now avoided eye contact. The supervisor returned, jaw tight. "Mr. Peter," he said, suddenly respectful, "we're clarifying a few things." Jacob met his gaze. "You've had time," he replied evenly. "You chose not to ask." The call came back fast. Too fast. The supervisor's shoulders sagged. "Sir," he said, opening the cruiser door, "there's been a misunderstanding." Cuffs were removed with fumbling hands. Apologies followed, layered and frantic, each one thinner than the last. "Procedure. Safety concerns. We acted on a call." Jacob listened without comment, rubbing his wrists, composure intact. Inside the cafe, officers began packing up equipment. Outside, the elderly woman was ushered aside, confusion replacing certainty. The supervisor attempted a smile. "We appreciate your cooperation." Jacob straightened his jacket. "Appreciation doesn't repair violations," he said quietly, "and fear doesn't justify negligence." A senior official arrived, breathless, eyes sharp. He shook Jacob's hand with both of his. "Director," he said. The word landed hard. Cameras appeared where there had been none. The supervisor swallowed. The story was no longer theirs to manage. By noon, the cafe was closed under a temporary notice, yellow tape fluttering where curiosity gathered. Statements were taken twice, then again, each version tightening around the same facts. Body cams were pulled, time-stamped, reviewed in a quiet room where no one spoke over the footage. Commands without cause, detention without inquiry, force without necessity. The checklist filled itself. Internal affairs arrived before the news vans finished parking. Badges were collected at a folding table, one by one, the metal clink sounding final. Firearms were surrendered. The SWAT unit commander was relieved pending investigation. 2 officers were placed on immediate suspension without pay. Another resigned before paperwork could be completed. Training certifications were frozen. A precinct-wide review was announced before the afternoon briefing ended. Jacob sat with counsel, calm as ever, recounting events with precision. The complaint was filed cleanly. Unlawful detention, civil rights violations, negligent escalation. The city moved quickly, not out of conscience, but calculus. A $150,000 settlement was approved within days, paired with mandatory policy reforms and public acknowledgement of fault. The apology was read aloud, measured, insufficient. The elderly woman issued a statement of regret that said little and explained less. The department issued another, longer, heavier, promising change while documenting consequences. Promotions evaporated. Careers ended quietly. The unit was restructured, then renamed. Jacob finished his coffee, now cold, and left the scene without ceremony. Authority had mistaken restraint for weakness and learned otherwise. Accountability didn't thunder. It arrived on letterhead with dates and signatures and stayed. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to Mindsmith Tales, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Do you think the consequences were enough? Your support helps Mindsmith Tales continue telling stories that challenge injustice and demand accountability.